I think we can start. So first we're going to go with Rafael. Again, great iteration from last time. Really starting to draw our eye to this focal point here. And the volume and the atmosphere that you've added in here, this kind of dustiness is making it feel really nice. I think I'm viewing this on two screens, and when I look on it on one screen, the volume gets really, like the haze is pretty strong. And then on my other screen, that is usually the correct color configuration. It looks a lot nicer with the gamma, but I think you can probably like meet in the middle. I think you can bring some of this just slightly back because it feels really nice and it's really starting to simplify the background. Like when I'm looking at this, the lamp is reading. It's just a really simple read, and that's what we want with some of these images. So I think you can probably, and I think it's just maybe the density, just bringing the density back just a little bit. And then I would like, right now it's, when I'm looking at it, it's starting to get a little bit, what we like to say dirty, and it's just some of the color mixing. So like some of the blue tones and the yellow tones get into this kind of green, like feel, when I think will look nicer in the fills is just a much, like going more cyan. So a little bit more blues in the fills. So if you're able to get a little more blues in the fills, that looks great. Like this right here, this you added, just like the gradient getting us pulled in here looks really nice. I think you can pull back on the exposure a bit right here on the desk. This hotspot is a little bit too much. We still want to read this paper. Like this seems like this is an important part of the story. So I think you can just bring down the exposure of this hotspot down a bit. This is looking really nice. Even that slight amount of halation on here really sells that this is really like a big light, like this is a light source. The other thing I think you can do is you can remove one of these specular hits. It feels like there's like two lights above, and I think just to keep it simple, you can remove one of these specular hits on the globe. Like everywhere else, like it like you don't feel it, but other than like right here. So I think that's one thing you can probably simplify.
Okay.
The other thing you can do too is do a grad on this door, like keeping a lighter from above, so you still want it to feel like there's a light coming up here, and then like just darkening it a little bit down here just to get some shaping from on that section. And
Okay.
the last couple things that you can do is there's some like really high contrast areas like right here, like this specs, like maybe like this like spec here and this spec here. I would just bring those down a bit, just so we can keep our eye here. Yeah, like this spec here and here actually draws my eye. I'm just looking at, like, again, I'm going into the details now. You got like the base going. Now it's just like these little details just to keep that'll plus this. And then the last thing that you can do is just add some more depth of field. Just really start to push these foreground elements out of focus. And that's going to help drive our eye closer to here.
Okay.
And then, sorry, to go back to the contrast, even taking these, like we have the plane change top to side, but it's the contrast is leading my eye down here more, where you still want to just keep it up here. So if you like cut that down by half, I think that'll help get us to keep looking over here.
Okay, yeah. That's too bright.
Yeah, just slightly. I mean, like it's just like these little things that'll help us kind of keep looking at the main focus of the image. But other than that, yeah, I think just little things like that, and I think you're in a great shape.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
any questions?
Yeah. How would? Well, I'm using. Well, let me check my really fast. I'm sure that the when you told me about the spec light that is hitting the glow, right? Because there are like three there. One's supposed to be for the lamp, one's
Yep.
supposed to be for the like the light that's up there, but there's like a third one that seems disconnected, right? How would you like take that away?
So we do this in comp a lot. Where do you have
Yeah.
separate AOVs for each
Oh,
light?
yeah. Yeah.
So you can just you can. Do you have crypto mats by chance?
Oh, no, no, I haven't gotten into cryptomats. I'm
Okay.
like basic composition for the
Yeah,
moment.
yeah, no worries. What about just RGB mats? Are you able to
Oh yeah,
create?
I do have that. Yeah.
So I would create an RGB like a mat for this globe, and
Mm-hmm.
then just take that that light AOV that's hitting here. If it's split into the glossy lobe, so I'm sorry when I say lobe, when I split if it's split into like diffuse and glossy, I would just take down the glossy. But if you only have it like per light, so it's just a single solo light, then you can just take down that whole entire light completely.
Yeah. I have another question is that maybe this is something on my part. Um, I don't know if it is, now that I see it, I don't know if it is correct that if you can see the glow, right? That there's like this rim light and there's also this speck light that looks like really circular, right? I don't know if that's correct because I know that I have two lights there, right?
Mm-hmm.
One's for like the bounce to hit like the left wall, well, the right wall from our
Yeah,
perspective, right?
yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if I should remove that spec light also because it's supposed to be only the rim light or only the circular spec light, right?
You know,
Like there seems to be two, and there's only supposed to be one light.
it doesn't bother me. It actually feel like you're talking about this and then
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
actually feels like really nice. It feels like it's coming from over here. It's
Hmm.
shaping it a bit, and uh, it doesn't disconnect. I don't think that doesn't bother me.
Another question is more like aesthetically, in a sense that I just don't know if I should leave like the windows, like the outside of the room, like with any kind of light, because they are like pure black at the moment, right? It's supposed to be in the night, right? But I don't know
Yeah.
if I should do something about that.
You that's a good point. Like a lot of times, like if we're talking about exposure, you might not see what's out there. But if you wanna like, I'd pull a reference first
Hmm.
of like something similar to this with where you see like the outside, just to get an
Hmm.
idea. And then when if you do add something, because the other thing that you could do is you could like just get reflections on the windows from the
Yeah.
interior, and that could
Oh
add some
yeah.
detail instead of having something outside.
Oh yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I didn't think about that. Yeah, because I like my scene is from, well, you saw the reference. It's from the movie Hereditary, and there are no windows there, so I was like a little bit like, I don't know what to do with this, right? I don't know if I should
Yeah,
like take a light from, well, getting like cool light or something like from to the window.
yeah, you
But
can. I
yeah,
mean, you can go either. If you're gonna do something on the outside, I'd pull reference of stuff like that. It doesn't have to be from the movie. It could be from anywhere. Like what's happening? What happens when we have an exposure like this? And if there's something outside, or you can do like the reflection stuff and just add in some. Like bring in some reflective elements from the interior, and just keep it very subtle. There,
yeah.
you don't want to draw attention to this because you see like you have these big black sections. It could create a lot of like um, contrast. So you're gonna want to
Yeah.
make it pretty subtle.
Yeah, another thing that I wanted to ask you is that I was looking at this again like today, after yesterday that I sent it, and I didn't know if I should lower the spotlight that's hitting the carpet a little bit more. Uh, I just don't know. Maybe it attracts a little bit too much attention still, or
This
or
the
or is it
spotlight.
fine?
I think
Yeah,
this.
that
I
that one.
think it's fine. You see, like when I think it's fine because it's grouping
Hmm.
with everything here. You if you want to separate this a little bit more, you can actually make it a little bit darker and like add a little bit of red to it.
Okay.
So then like it's still feeling analogous in the color scheme. So it's like you're using these tones, like this red tones, you have these yellow and red tones here. Right now, like when I squint my eyes, it certainly feels like it's like the same, like it's probably like the same like value and hue
Yeah.
as the ground. If you want to add a little bit more interest, you could make it a little bit darker, um,
Mhm.
and like a little bit more red, kind of almost closer to like what the chest is doing, and then
Okay. Okay.
that'll help us like stay on this bright element here.
Okay. The bottom, you told me like there's like the colors are like getting a little bit dirty, like especially like on the back wall, because of the volumetrics, right? If I'm not wrong, or something like that.
Yeah, I think it's just okay. So I just did like a quick. I think earlier I did this quickly, but like I kept the orange just to here, and then everything around it. Uh, and this is me doing a quick like hue and saturation, but you can just do this to just to the volume, and just colorize the fill. So like keep the core like orange, but everything around it like a little bit cooler.
Yeah, I think I can do that. I have a filler that's like acting like a bounce light from down to the top, right? And I also have like a volumetric that it's like passing all the way through the scene, right? To create like
Yeah.
well the volumetric, right, and the depth of field. And it's like a greenish like kind of color. Probably it's that's the reason why it's getting like those kind of hues at the moment.
Yeah, it's not that
But
far really. I think it's just I would just go maybe a little bit cooler because I think in your reference, um, yeah. Let
it
me.
Yeah, I don't know. That's another thing. Like, I see my reference on some of my monitors. It's supposed to be, yeah, it's kind of curious. Like, in my monitor that's supposed to be color corrected, it
Yeah.
looks a little bit darker, the reference. But now that I see it, like on your screen, it's a little bit brighter, and it
Oh,
has yeah. So
match it to whatever is like. So right now, this is gonna be the same. It's in the it's the same what on the image. It's still sRGB.
yeah,
So when I'm looking at it here together, that's where you want to match these two. It's like on my screen, it's going to look a little bit different. Um,
hmm
but when I'm looking at it compared to here, I'm seeing like these. You see how much more like desaturated and cooler like
yeah,
the
I see it.
fills
It's
are.
also yeah, it's yes,
Like you have your warms here, and it actually goes like to the blue tones, not as
I,
much as the green tones. And that to me, it doesn't feel as dirty like in this image. Um,
yeah,
there are green tones. It's like over here when the colors are really really saturated mixing together. But it's like that's fine because this is where we want to look. You want to have that contrast here. Everything else in the
yeah,
surrounding it, you don't want to make it as interesting.
yeah. Okay. No, yeah, yeah. No, it's yeah. Okay, that's a bit of a problem. I need to check that then. But yeah, I need to see. Well, check my reference a little bit more carefully then to match it up with the light.
Yeah, yeah, no, I think like I
Because
said,
I
that's it's pretty close. Yeah, I think you're doing. It looks great. Honestly, like it doesn't like it's not that far.
the door, yeah. What you said about the door is like really spot on. Yeah, I think it's a little bit flat. It's just that I didn't know what to do at the moment with that. I really did want to like have it a little bit more brighter, like on the top row, and go like a little bit more darker, and maybe have like a little bit of like a bluish like feel light on the bottom. But I need to check that.
Yeah, I don't think it needs the fill because I think if you go blue, you're gonna have that like unless you like keep this if you group this section and keep this desaturated,
Yeah.
less warm, you can do that. But watch like if you go warm, like, if you go cool over warm, it's gonna start creating contrast that we want to like stick to over
Oh
here.
yeah, that's true. And we
Um,
went yeah on the desk. Yeah,
but definitely
that's true.
you can use a filter just to like grab this off.
Okay.
Um,
Um.
so I
I'm.
don't want to like if you want we can chat a little bit later, but
Oh yeah, yeah. Sorry, sorry. Yeah,
like
sorry.
I just want I know there's a lot of other work to go through, so let's like if you have any other questions, and I completely apologize for cutting you off. Um, uh, definitely hit me up and we can chat about that more for sure.
Oh, oh, don't worry. I should be apologizing for taking the time
Oh
of
no,
the other people here. I'm sorry, guys.
no,
Thank
you're
you still.
totally fine. Um, thank you, and great progress.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm gonna go on to I'm gonna go on to Jordan. So Jordan, you have this really cool reference um, of Jurassic Park, and you're doing kind of a similar reference to it. And I'm actually let me play this one first for everyone. Can everybody see this? Okay. Let's see here.
Yes.
Okay, so let's kind of analyze this a bit and what is successful about this shot. So this is a dark, really contrasty scene, but when we're looking at it, we're still tracking with the dinosaurs. We're tracking with the dinosaurs, and I forgot what Chris Pratt's name is in the film, but we're also tracking with him. And the reason why we're able to do that is because everything, if you look at everything in the surrounding, it's pretty dark. Like even the ground plane is not like there's not a lot of there's light for shaping, but they're not very strong. Most of the light, like if you look at it, are on the dinosaurs. Like they have this really nice like rim light and a little bit of like wrap coming around it. So you're always getting like this contrast of the dinosaurs off of the background. And then Chris Pratt, like we're not even really focused on him, and it's about the action. You know, we just want to track them. You don't have to like they don't have to like have any beauty lighting or anything like that. We just need like some like shaping. So it's always like light over dark or dark over light. You see how like over here, it's a puzzle. So they have this dark, wherever it's dark, they hit it with light. And then like once they start going dark, they add a little bit of volume behind. So you're still able to track it. So it's always like playing around with those dark over lights and light over dark. So like the Velociraptor here is pretty dark, but what do we see? The eyes, we see some of this texture. So like, and then once it starts getting into light, everything behind it starts to go a little bit darker. With Chris Pratt, like the only thing that the best thing that we're able to track is the light and the spot that's coming from it. The other like great thing too is the stepping. So like whatever's kind of dark in the background, they start to give a little bit more atmosphere in the back. So you still get that read of dark over light. You see like the trees are still reading because there's that big bright light over it. And then over here, what's kind of interesting is, and personally, it takes my eye away from everyone else, but they have this interesting like almost like moonlight going through the trees and these streaks of like God rays happening, which like initially to me like distracts me, like because I'm looking up there, but when we get to the ground level and we see it going through the trees, it creates this frenetic feel. And then once they go into, so what I'm guessing too is like they have these lights on them. Like they have like, let me just pause this for a second. So they have like fill lights coming from the side for the Velociraptor, but it looks like at moments they start to animate it down, or like they go into these dark patches. So if you look at this Velociraptor in the foreground, it starts bright and then the fill goes down. So that way we're able to read it on top of the other characters. So Jordan, let's go and start looking at what you have. Let me see if I can download this and play it. Fantastic. Okay. Okay, so like the first thing that you're gonna like as we go in here to get this, you already started have like these rims on the dyno, but you're gonna want like you're gonna want to like start to darken the ground in the background. You see how the ground starts to my eye starts to go down here a little bit too much. So I would start to like darken the background a bit and then add some of those volumetrics or some of that atmosphere coming from the background, so you get a dark silhouettes of the trees over that bright background. And then with the Velociraptor, try to like try to get as much of a rim on top of the whole. Like right now you have in the front, but you might need another light just to get like the rest of the character reading a bit. And then once you get that lit, you can take this background down more as well and have like the light almost be like you can grab it. So the light is more at the top and then it darkens down here. And then you have this nice like rim hitting the dinosaur. And then taking like this down a bit, you still want to read like the dark, like this dark figure on top of this. So this, but I think you can take this down a lot. If we look back at our reference, like see how kind of dark the lower ground is. And all we really want is like this simple read of like this dinosaur, like getting hit with this rim. I bet you this is not like one light. This is probably a couple to get this shaping. They probably have, this is probably one light here. This is probably a light here. And then like this may be another light. And then they have another light here to fill or wrap. So like sometimes we have to do a lot of cheating just to get that shaping that we want. So like for me, like I think of this as more of a wrap. Like you have this soft light. I would say get another like kick like rim on top of it and then get that to read all the way across. Like it's totally fine to like have it like go through like dapple light, like through dark and light patches. But if it goes through like a dark patch, if it goes through a dark patch, you're gonna want to have like more atmosphere in the back, not like when you look back here, there's a lot of detail, right? So you kind of like think of it as like it gets kind of interesting. Like if you look at the background, let's see if I can pull this one as well. Going back to here, if you look at the background, it's pretty simple. Like there's not a lot of detail happening back there. You do get like some like high frequency, but that's more of like the volume, that atmosphere all the way in the back peeking through. You're not really getting like a ton of, there's only like moments like right here, but even then it's still it's not as bright as this. This becomes like high frequency. When you squint your eyes, what do you look at when you see this image? Like when I squint, I start looking at the background because you have a high frequency noise kind of back there that gets really interesting. So if you add some haze, you add a little bit more atmosphere and haze back there and just take it down so you feel like there's like shaping to it, but it's like what you want is like this feel you want to see the dinosaur. So what I would do is I would simplify the background a bit, get more haze and drop down the specular hits. Start thinking about like let's see if I can open this back up again. Start simplifying the ground planes, and then after you have that, then start to light your dinosaur. Just get like, you don't have to get like it going through light and dark. Just get like the shaping, like like everything completely shaped. And then once you have that, you can start thinking about, where do I want my dinosaur to go dark, and where do I want it to come back out in the light again. It's like, think about those like cool moments of like when are the best moments to kind of like feel that reaction. Yeah, like going through light and dark. First, simplify everything a lot more. Take everything down, like these bright hits on the background. Add in more of that atmosphere, and then get to shaping on your characters. That would be the first step, just to kind of simplify everything. And then you can start adding and building from there, and thinking about, oh, maybe it might be nice to have like, like those volumetrics to come here and make the dinosaur a little bit darker, so it's dark over light here. Then, it's like, as it comes around, right here, this is where I hit it again with light to kind of really feel that menacing. Or it's like, maybe it's like you have more light here, and then you hit it with a little bit more like fill top light to get the eyes, It's like you want to see those beady eyes maybe right here. And then it gets dark and it jumps up, and then this is the moment as it like, you like lose it maybe for a second, and then it comes through, boom, and you hit it again with like that big light coming from behind, just really like feeling that impact, and then it goes through. So like, first get like that very simple kind of read on it first, and then you can start playing around with like, okay, this is the moment. And that's the thing. It's like, in the story, what is happening? It's like how are you tracking it? Do I want to lose it here a little bit? Do I want to always see it? Like, think about that. Like, what do you want to tell in the story? And then let your light speak for it. I know that was kind of a lot, but thoughts, questions?
Yeah, so first, thank you so much. That was really in depth, and I love that because I'm getting a ton of ideas on how to really tackle it and it was really complicated. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna show this really early on just so I can get pointed in the right direction and really hammer it in early. Um, so I guess my only question for now would probably be, as for the dinos, would you recommend making like maybe a rig, like 3, 4 lights, and then light linking them just to the dinos, and then animating the value of the lights depending on where we are in the scene?
I mean, that would be the simplest approach. And then you can kind of, and then you have, like, the thing is, like, when you do that, then you have more management in Nuke with the animating of it. The other way is picking those spots where you want the light to hit, and then like dappling it in there. So it's like, so what you want to do first is go through the story beats of what you want to see with the dinosaurs. Do you want to see them in light the whole entire time? If they're in light the whole entire time, light linking is like your best bet. If you want to create like that frenetic feel of like you're losing it and then comes back and you lose it again and then it like bursts through, like figure out what those points are, like what you want to see. It's like I was saying, like maybe there's a point where you want to see the eyes, the face, and you want to like really smack it there. That's the first thing that I would suggest you do before you go light. It's like really understand what is the story you're trying to tell, and then you can start thinking about the creative like moments of like, yeah, I'm gonna hit it here. I want to lose it here. I want the other one to come in. And I track that one next. It's like, what are those like kind of interesting things that you can like, you can tell in the story. It's the same thing with Jurassic Park, or I guess it's Jurassic World, right? Like they don't just keep it on one dino. They have a track with one dino. Then the next dino comes in. Then you go to Chris Pratt. Then you come back out. It's like they're creating these moments of tension, of like of what they want you to see, rather than letting the environment do that for you.
I love that. Thank you so much. I think it's going to be really fun to take it much farther the next iteration. So being able to, like you said, really change the fundamental values of the shot to bring our eyes to the right place, create that action and that suspense. I kind of like that in and out feeling that you were talking about. I think that's going to really make it scary, especially if I make it go dark right before the Rex comes in, and then bam, hit it with the light, and then put it back in silhouette again to make it look really foreboding. So
Yeah,
that'll
yeah,
be fun.
yeah. Again, it's like, what do you want? What do you want to tell in the story? Where you want the
Yeah.
viewer to look? Honestly, I didn't even know there was a T-Rex. But like that, like you could have it like, that's where you have to, like right there, because it's so dark, right? And
Mhm.
then so like here you have maybe you it's like, who do you want to track? You want to track the Velociraptor, and then now this is boom. That's where you want to hit, like the T-Rex is like at that last moment, like you want to see the T-Rex now. It's like, oh. So yeah, like those are think of that first. What do you want in the story? What do you want? What do you want each beat to be?
Cool.
Okay.
I'm so excited. Thank you so much, Shane.
Yeah,
I'm
no problem.
really thankful.
Great to meet you.
You too.
All right, moving on. Let's see here. Okay, I'll go through everyone who is here, so that way, if you need to leave early, you can feel free. So the next person down the line, I have Ronald. Okay, let's go here. So Ronald. Okay, so based on like the last iteration, fantastic like movement. I just picked one that I felt was like working really, really well, if that's okay, to kind of talk about.
Yeah, sure.
So I like looking at this image, thought this was starting to work really, really nicely with like the separation that you had going on between this dark over light. Having some of these like lighter values here, more saturated. I think there's a couple things that you can do to keep like pushing this and get this kind of like the God of War feeling, get this feeling right here. And the first thing that I see like when I look at these images is like, where do I want my eye to go? And like a lot of these images, the light helps with that. So we have this God ray in this image just pointing down to like this little saturated yellow and green pathway. And my eye goes directly there. And why does that happen? Because we have this darker foreground, and then we have less like contrast in the background, and then the most contrast is right here. So to take that kind of thought process, what I think you can do to help push this is, let's put all of this in shadow. Even God of War does it here. The foreground is dark. So you can, like, if we take this down and put this in shadow, that'll help get us to here more. Because right now, when I'm looking at this, my eye goes to like these super saturated yellows, and these bright yellows, and everything else is like these cool tones. So we get a hue contrast. But I think if you darken it, similar to like what God of War and like this reference image is, you can darken down here, put this in shadow, and then the next thing you can do is add a little bit of dappling. See how they have like dappling here? You can add a little bit of dappling to the pathway and bring it, like, have a little bit less light on it, so you have some contrast here. And then you have this dappling go a little bit brighter, and then you have this be like the brightest. And I wouldn't be mad if you went a little bit brighter just on here, just so we can tie this area up just a little bit and keep this the focal area.
Do you mean brighter all over that area or just the rim?
Just like the key. You can just bring this key on this branch or these roots just a little bit brighter.
All right.
And then this looks really great. I would also bring maybe these, take a little bit of the the fog just on some of these branches, it feel like I want to feel these come forward a little bit and group with like what these branches are doing, or these leaves and branches are doing. Right now, some of these leaves are starting to, like, when I close or like squint my eyes, they start to blend with the background. I kind of want to simplify the shape a bit and get this to read with the same. So I'd take some of this fog off of these branches and get more contrast. I think, so when we darken this a bit, yeah, let's just see what happens when you darken this. Like you'll still want to have a little bit of stepping. So maybe you might want to bring up the reflection just a little bit on the water here. That's
all right.
That's looking great. And then like the last thing, if you could do, is you have like kind of high contrast here, back here, just on here. You might want to add a little bit like dappling on the background, just a little bit, just to get a little bit more like, just to kind of group this section a little bit. So like you see kind of, if you look at, let's see if I can go in. If you look back here, you can kind of see like how there's like a little bit of dappling on the trees. You might want to add a little bit of that too, back here. And this looks great. Yeah, I think just those little small changes. Oh, you know what? You could, like, the last thing that you can do is getting some of those like streaks. Right now, like the fog back here gets a little bit flat. You may, there's a couple things you can do. You can, if you want to like stick to this image, you can either add a little bit of like some of these like patches of fog, so it gets a little bit like more dense at the bottom, and then it lines up at top. Or you could add in like God rays across the background, so it feels like the light is passing through trees, and it gives a little bit more interest, similar to like what this image is doing. So it's like either go for like this image, like here, where there's like a little bit more fog like on the lower part and less at the top, or add a little bit of interest with like the God rays in the background.
Okay, I see.
Yeah, I think other than that, great progress, and yeah, I can't wait to see your next iteration.
Thank you. Can I have one last question? Sorry.
Yeah, go for it.
For the dappled light on the background on screen right, yeah. Do you want me to put it over the yellow grass as well, or just the stone wall and the smaller
Yeah,
balls in
that's
front of it?
I think right now you have like this simple shape, and it reads really well. And I think like similar to like you see in like God of War, how the grass just has this really nice simple read. I think what you have going there is working really nice. I think you just need a little bit of dappling on like these surfaces.
All right.
Just a little bit. It doesn't have to be a lot. The last thing that you could do is just add some more saturation in the shadows over here. You see like in here, like where the shadow areas are, there's a lot of saturation. It doesn't really go as like dingy. Like it starts to get a little dirty. You remember I was like talking about dirtiness with our colors earlier? Like you might want to add in like in the shadows, just more saturation. And that's just going to help bring that like that feeling of brightness in the scene. Like keep the value the same, but you're just adding more of that of the local color. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
Okay, thank you so much.
All right, no problem. Great job.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, let's see. We have Simon. Oops. I keep doing that for. Okay, here we go. All right. Great. Next great iteration, Simon. I think looking at this, the one thing that I want to kind of do is I do this from time to time, and I put a hue and saturation, or I make everything black and white. I desaturate everything, just to kind of get a feel for what are my values doing. So the first thing that I noticed, like when I look at this, and what this helps is I can now see that the background should be much like a lot darker. You know, like we have room to bring this background down a lot more. It's like you see how the shirt just really pops off the background. I think like when I look at the ball, your fills can actually go a little bit brighter, and then your background can go a lot darker compared, like just taking like the reference image into account. Like this rim, look, this is matching really, really close. That's really nice. The same with this key, and I actually think that the key can probably go a little bit brighter, but it may not be once you take the background down. So what'll help you is take everything and to like desaturate it and start working with your values. Once you have your value structure in a good place, then you can go back and then you can start looking at the colors that are happening in the scene. But like what that flag that you did on the bottom, taking away that fill, is working really, really nice. Now you're getting a lot more of that shaping, similar to what's going on here, and it's starting to look really great. I think you may have like a touch more room to bring up the fills and then bring down the background, but that's going in a great direction. Now going back to the color, I think like this key feels really great. I think the key is feeling really nice. I think the fill, like this fill can have a lot more cool saturation. I'm seeing a little bit of magentas that I'm not seeing in here. So I think you may take the magentas and push that more to the blues, but you'll definitely want to bring in more of that blue saturation in the fills. But I think it's pretty close. It's looking great. I think like this, like when I'm looking at the background, yeah, once you take the color down, I think the value down, I think the color will sit in nicely as well.
All right, thank you.
Going on to the next one, let's do like the same exercise again. Let's take everything in black and white again and see what our value structure is doing. Okay, so I'm looking at here. The first thing that I think you could do is like you can actually like add maybe a blocker here. It's tricky because our grass is dark already, and compared to like what our white background is doing. So it's like a challenge, right? So what you could do to simulate that is take a blocker, like a light blocker, and then start to like shadow that area just to get like that value structure of like this big dark plane across here. And that'll help get us to focus more in this direction. I think the fills can come down a lot more too. You can see like the fills, like right around here can come down. And maybe that's like in your environment light, maybe you just have a big light blocker behind camera just to take down the fills facing us.
I already have quite a few blockers kind of around the camera and everything. I think it's hard to, I don't know, I was trying to match the sky dome with with like the white material of the house in the background, because that's supposed to be kind of, I was trying to match the brightness of that, but it's kind of hard to control it. So I can try adding more blockers.
Yeah, see if you can like just add one ginormous blocker like in like right behind camera. And then if this is going too dark, that's when you can add, we can cheat it and we can add another fill light there just for that, like this section.
Gotcha.
But I think what I'm looking at is like, and it might not be like one plane, like one big plane. It might be like a plane and then like another big plane off to the side. Like I see like screen right side, it's darker. Or sorry, screen left side, the shaping is darker. The screen right side is where I see some of that light coming from. So if like if we go and use this as an example, like, oops, let me add this. That's fine. So this area right here, that's like, look at the branches, like the shaping here, that the light is coming more from the right hand side and it's just trickling in a bit. And then if you need it, if you need it, you can add in that fill light just for this back section, just to get separation there. But I'm squinting my eyes right now. This is actually working pretty well. I think you can probably shape this table a bit where it's a little bit dark, like it's more light coming from the top, and like get like more shape. Like see how like this tone, you have the bright top section and then you have a little bit darker. Like you can probably shape that a bit. All this looks like it's working pretty well. You can bring this down probably a little bit, bring that down. See how dark this plane is? That's what's going to help like focus our eye back to here. Like you can like darken this area a bit back here. So like our focus should like continue to go here. Even in the value structure, if we look at the value, our eyes are still, boom, right there. Like we have this light section here. Like in the foreground, we have this, like these darker planes. Like if I squint my eyes, this top plane feels right. Now, like the bottom plane, like these planes right here, that's where we want to go darker.
Okay.
And then in terms of color, this is starting to work really nice. I think you can add more yellows. Like see how like, let me see if I can actually color pick this. So let's color pick here. So it's like amber, golden amber. And where's that in terms of where our color is on our spectrum? It's starting to get more to the yellows. If I pick here, see how far it is in the reds. So, and first of all, let me see if I can. Okay, so if I bring something that's a little bit darker. Yeah, you see it's going more into the red tones. And then if I pick up here, let's see if I can get one that's a little bit brighter. It starts to go into more of the yellow. See how close it is to the yellows? So you can actually shift this color more. Adding more green is going to help it. If you add more green, that'll help push it towards your yellow. Because red, and when it comes to light, red and green makes yellow.
Okay. Would you say the color temperature slider won't do the job and I need to go into the color picker?
Oh, yeah. So you're going color temperature. Okay. Yes.
Honestly, I'm kind of going back and forth.
Yeah, I think, well, honestly, I'm looking at how saturated blue, this cool blue is. I think once you go cyan and cool, like, and you add more saturation to your environment, that actually will probably do it. Because if you go cyan, cyan is blue and green mixed or added together. So that green will actually already start pushing this towards the yellows already.
Okay. Yeah, it's already, I think I already made it a little bit cyan, but I was really restrained with it, so maybe I just push it a little.
You know, go extreme with it. It's okay. Look at this. Like, this is what I do all the time in Nuke. like I'll have, okay, actually dang it, I don't have Nuke open right now. But what I do is I have two viewers. I create two viewers, and then I'll color pick in one, and that gives me like, I'll have like what, like my reference image in one, and then I'll have my image in the other, and then I'll color pick it, and I'll look at it. I'm like, okay, where are we? Okay, let me actually go in RGB. So I'm like, okay, where am I with my RGB? Okay, 61, 112, 105. All right, okay, so that's where I'm with. So you can see there's less reds, more greens, and more blues, but less than green. And then I go here, and it's much more neutrals. Everything's closer together. There's still more greens, but slightly more blues. You see how like when the RGB gets closer together, like in value, that's less saturation. So like when you go further away, so you see how like there's less reds, that creates more saturation. So, and it's going more into the cyans. So absolutely push, like check, like use your color pickers to like see like how far am I from this reference.
Okay.
Yeah, because I can see some of it here, but I think you can push it.
Got it. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And the last thing that really gives me the reference of what your environment dome color should be is the sky. Look at the sky, how saturated that sky is. I'm looking at that, and again, way more saturated in the green and blue than red.
All right.
All right. No, great job. I think like honestly, the step that you took was huge. Like just to be able to get like, this is a very, like I want to commend you because this is a very simple read. When I'm looking at it, you're taking and you're grouping these sections, and then you're grouping these sections. Now it's just time to like push our eye closer to here and group our foreground, and then group our midground, and then group our background.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Thanks very much.
Yeah, no problem. Okay. Next up. Okay. Carolina. So I got your message late in the day, so I didn't have a ton of time to actually like look through it a lot, but I would still, since you're here, I still want to like chat to you about this and see if like there's a couple things we can go over to push this a bit. So the first thing that I want to ask you is, what is the story you want to tell in this image?
Actually, I want to kind of transmit like a peaceful theme, but there is actually a story. I didn't know the story.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Let me turn up my volume because okay. Could you repeat that one more time? I apologize. My volume was too low.
A story. Actually, I didn't know about the story. I kind of want to transmit like a peaceful moment, kind of like sunrise time. I don't have a.
Okay, so I think I was reading this, and yes, you want to have like this sunrise scene, and you want to have peaceful and calming look. It like is are we supposed to focus on our on the character? Is this more about the environment? Is there something about the book? Do we need to focus? Is the book important? What I think those are like kind of elements that are going to help us like think about where do we want our key, and then go from there.
Want to have the attention on him.
Okay. So tension on him, and then looking at the reference. So we have these like this sunrise. It's like it's dusk. So sorry, is it sunrise or this is a sunset, right? Or no, sunrise, because you have more of the purples and pinks tones. But like the sun is just, it's like are you looking at these images more, or like the sun hasn't completely like risen yet? It's just right about to do that, correct? Okay, so going to this image, so what I would probably, so you have your sun coming from behind, and looking at the images, you can probably go a lot darker, like in the like what I'm seeing is there might be another light coming from this direction. So I would pick a specific direction. If it's like screen left or screen right, I'm guess it's probably going to be better to do screen right and just have the sun just coming from that direction. And you can hit them with the same kind of rim here, but everything else like kind of hitting a rim as well. Because like we have the sun kind of coming from left and right, it gets a little bit hard to read everything. So I would pick a direction, pick maybe your screen right, coming this direction. And then the next thing what you can do is, let's think about simplifying things. So like everything in the foreground can go a little bit darker. So if you look at these images, the things in the foreground are a little bit darker than everything in the background. And that also helps with our depth cue. So you can go a little bit darker on these like you can put all of these in shadow, like the flowers can all go in shadow. I think some of these like the sky to me seems like it might be going a little bit overexposed. So similar to this, like the brightest sections are going to be where the sun is. So in your image, you can actually take this down a bit, and then we can take down like the fills just a little bit too, and not as saturated. If we look at actually in here we do have more saturations. Like in these images, there's not as much saturation. So you might want to pick whether you want to have more saturation in your scene or less saturation. And you're talking about your character. How do you shape your character? I think I have a great reference for that. Let me pull this. Let's see. Roger Deakins, just James images. All right, here we go. So if we look at what Roger Deakins did in The Assassination of Jesse James, it's kind of similar to, this is sunset, but it's still the same kind of like soft light that you would expect from it. So if we look at, let's go and see if I can actually pull this up as an image. If we look at Brad Pitt, he has this like really soft key. And then what Roger Deakins does a lot is he adds a wrap. So you have your key light first that hits him. And if you look at it, it's not really super hard. It's not like the quality of light isn't hard, meaning that the size of the light is small. It's the size of the light is much larger, because if we look at our sky, if we look at the sky, like where the brightest point is, it's a large, we have this large bright source that's very soft. So when we look at the shaping, what's hitting Brad Pitt is much softer. And then what he does is he has an even larger light that he pulls around a bit. And that's what's illuminating this side of him. And it just shapes him very softly. So he has like it's almost like two lights. You have your key light, and then you have your wrap light that comes around. And then from there, you might have just a slight fill, but you might not even need the fill at that point. So let's go back to your image. And yeah, I think you can actually bring down some of the saturation in your fills. So like with this light, this is nice, but I think you can actually bring that down a bit. And what we're going to do is we're going to actually try to get like a dark over light read on him. So everything behind him is going to be lighter. We're going to want everything lighter, and then we're going to want him a little bit darker. So to do that, like you'll have this key light that you have, and then you're gonna have your larger wrap light just to kind of shape them. And you almost kind of have that doing that with your fill, but what the wrap light is to simulate is it's the same light source. So it would probably be a little bit warmer. You'd have a little bit warmer light, and then it would go a little bit cooler on this side with your fills. And then I think you can take down a lot of you have a lot of exposure here in the background, these saturated greens. You can take a lot of this down as well, and that'll help keep our focus up here a bit. So I would first thing is just have your light come from screen right, pick a side, screen right, and then see where that lands. And then next thing is have everything in the foreground in shadow, so we can we can simplify that. And then take your, in your matte painting back here, you can rotate that a bit so it's actually coming from, the light source is coming from this direction. And then we can probably go from there and start seeing where that lands us and start taking some steps.
Sorry, can you repeat the fill light? You say it's less saturated?
Yeah, so right now your fill is very, very blue. It's at, and I think you can actually have less, it can be less blue, be less saturation. So like when I'm looking at these screen, like these images, like there's still a little bit, it's not like overly saturated when I'm looking at some of these colors. The saturation comes from more of like our key light, like these very, very, and like even the key light is very pink. We're using a lot of pinks. But I think when I'm looking at this, the blue light is a little bit overwhelming. And then I think some of these rocks, you can probably add some more subdivisions in it. You're getting a little bit of tessellation, or it's polygonal. It's more like polygonal. So I think you can add a little, if you go and just add more subdivisions to those and soften those, you'll get more shaping as well. Okay, do you have any other questions?
I'm okay with that.
Okay, perfect. So I'll go on to Joey. Okay, Joey. So you let me know that this is probably gonna be your last iteration, so I'm gonna give you as many notes as possible. So the first thing, the great pass. I think the first thing that you can probably do, just kind of push this more, is I would in the texture for these. I'm starting to see a lot of detail in them. So what I would do is I would probably change these to be more like, I wouldn't have a saturated color in there. I go a little bit more neutral, like what's in here. So you can make them almost like a light gray. And then you could also take the pattern and tile the pattern a little bit more too. So there's a little bit like lower frequency, similar to what's going on here. And then it'll pick up some more of these colors that we have in your scene. I think with your volume light, it's starting to look really great. I would add some decay to it. You see how like this light starts to decay like around here, and your lights go all the way to the ground. And I think what yours can do is like almost finish here. And I think this light and this light, you can actually probably add an additional light here just to simulate this, and get a little bit more like of this volume, like larger volume. Similar, you got like this is looking really great in terms of density and structure. I think you can just add a little bit more here. And then you can saturate look at the blue tones. The saturation of the blues are a lot more. You can add those more saturations in the key here, more blue tones on that's happening on her key side. And then I would, on the ground, I think you can add a little bit more of those reflections back. So you can see that there's still, like right now it's a little bit too diffused, but I think you can add some more of those a little bit of those reflections back, just to get a little more specular hits. And then for your cookie, I think you can soften this. See how soft, like you see the shape, but they're softer. I think you can soften the shape a bit. This shape and this shape. I think you can soften those. And then in your fills, I think you still need more like violet fills. See how like violet these colors are and lifted? I think you can add more of those violet tones. And I think that's really just adding more blue in here. And then, yeah, trying to get more blue on this side and then a little bit more pink. You see how like we have more pink bounce on this side? I think you can add that there, and that'll and then this one you can probably take down just a little bit. And I think with those notes, I think you can tie it in really nicely, and get it a little bit closer to what our reference is saying. I might need, so what it kind of looks like is, I think your format, your resolution is probably too high. Because what I'm seeing is I'm potentially seeing these cutout flowers here. So you might have a resolution issue happening, and you might want to check that. If not, we can do a separate session and look and troubleshoot that as well. But yeah, keep on. I know this is your last pass, but see if you can add in a little bit more of that. Last thing would be adding a little bit more cool saturated blue fills into the character as well. If you look up here on the top planes, we're getting a lot of those saturated blues compared to the warms. And yeah, that would be my last notes for you on this one. Okay, I don't see Mariana, but Mariana, this is your first pass for this. I think the first thing that I would think about is what direction do you want to have your key in? And right now, your key is coming from the screen right-hand side, and it's hitting your house structure right here. And what this kind of like, if I'm looking at this in terms of a story, this makes me feel like something's gonna happen at these windows, like a character's gonna pop out, or like something's gonna come up to the windows. If the story is really much more about the house in general, it might actually be better if you flip your key and have it coming this direction. And hitting the front face of the house, and then that's where you also would want to start thinking about, okay, if I'm hitting this with my key right here, see where like that lands with everything else. And you may need to start thinking about, how am I going to how am I going to kind of keep my eye to up here? And a lot of times what that is maybe adding some like dapple light just in this section, and then starting to darken some of these front areas, and then see what the light starts doing here. But I think let's first rotate our light, see what it's doing, and then start thinking about what we want to do with the story and how we can keep and direct our eye. So I think that step one with this is getting your key direction. I think the colors mixing that you're starting to get is really lovely. Like, this is like, sorry, let me get a better color. Get in the green tones, better contrast. This right here, if you're looking at like the color spill and the color bleed, that's beautiful. That's exactly what we're starting to get on the snow. The snow feels like snow, and that is a huge win. So like your color mixing is starting to get really nice tones. So, but let's first change our light direction and hit our building here, and then let's see where we need to go from there. But great job in your first step with your colors and getting this palette to really feel like what the reference is doing. All right, Marie, you're next. So looking at this, I think this is another huge step in the right direction. I love like what you're starting to do in the scene. So looking like things that I think were working like in the last previous section was like what, oops, I need another layer. What you were getting right here, let me get contrast, different contrast. So the level of brightness and value was really nice that you're getting here. This is great. I love what you're going here, but I think you can push like the value closer to what you had before, like what you had here. This was a nice read. It was a very lovely read. This is gorgeous what you're getting here. Let me actually go back to the background, and I think what you can do is you can start to bring back a little bit. You see how filled you had your background back here? I think you can bring that back. That was really nice. And then I think you can like loose a little bit more contrast. It's great that you're bringing out contrast out, like separating. Like what you have here is looking great. I think this is like the contrast ratio that you want. Like what you have here, right? When I'm looking out here, you're starting to get a lot of blacks over a darker tone, where I think you can kind of meet in the middle from what you had here. So get this value back in the background, and then start to bring like these this is starting to feel great in terms of your contrast ratio, and just have just like one more step, just a little bit of a step going from these trees back to the background. I think that's going to look great. All of this is starting to look really nice. I think you may need to like with some of these plants, bring some of the fills down just a little bit. And then the reflections, you want the reflections to be a little bit darker. Right now, the reflections are actually, reading a little bit or not the reflections, the plants are reading a little bit floaty, and kind of these as well. So I think these reflections need to be darker so we can group this a little bit more. And then I think you can add a little bit more saturated color here. Some of those more blues. See in the reference, you're getting a little bit of saturation. You can just lift these just slightly. This is looking really nice as well. I love the shaping that you're getting here, and I think let's keep this the most saturated and brightest point, and then these like spots here you can start to take down a bit, and even like the glows. I think the glows similar here, like these glows aren't reaching too far outside of the source, so you can just tighten those a bit as well. And yeah, and like these, you might want to take these down just a little bit more as well. Let's keep this the most saturated and then take these down just a little bit. And I think that is like, I think that's it. I think I think it's really just tightening up a couple of different areas, and then I think you're in pretty good shape. Great iteration, nice job. Okay, so I'm gonna go over Orash's now. So you had the question that you felt that this was starting to get a little bit too overexposed, and I actually think that you can push it further. You don't like this doesn't need to go like this bright point doesn't need to go any further, but I think you can push the midtones and the shadows much farther. Like see how bright this is. I think this can go just like almost as close as this and go a little bit. This to me is starting to simplify this read. It's actually not distracting. It's actually simplifying and bringing our eye over here more. So I think you can actually push that more. And I think your halation actually works really nice. This feels bright. It feels like it's overexposed now. So that's really nice. I think you can keep that. I think you can darken this a little bit more in the foreground. Like the ground plane. You can darken that a little bit more. And I think you can darken the door just a little bit more too. I saw that you started grading that. I think you can go just a little bit further. And then I think like you can like the bounce light here can be a little bit stronger. I think you can add a little bit more bounce light. You can add a little bit more bounce to the wall. Just a little bit. Doesn't need to go too much further. I think it's pretty close. This is feeling pretty nice. I love this grad that you have going on up here. You don't need to like grad. You don't need to add the bounce contribution to these paper. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to like simplify this a little bit more by adding a little bit more fill to or bounce to the wall. The other thing you can do is like add just a little bit more fill to your lamp light as well. Right now, like when I squint my eyes, this tone is blending with this tone. So it's two things. You can either add more fill back here so you get a dark over light read, or brighten this so it's a light over dark. Squinting my eyes a little bit more. I think you can push the DOF. I see you started adding it here. Push it even more. I think you can go way further than that. Yeah, you can push the DOF a lot more. And then I think you can take these spec hits right here down by like half. And I think that's, this one too. You might want to take that one down a little bit too. And after that, I think you're in great shape. Like right now, the base is there. My eye, it feels like that like morning sun coming in. And I think it's now just like small little shaping notes, tiny little notes. You just keep it like just to push it that extra 10%. And I think it's there. Great. This is fantastic job. Okay, I have one last one. And I think, okay, it's Kaya. Is it? Okay, Kaya, please tell me which one's the better pronunciation. But this, I took a look at your movie earlier, and it's like it's getting in a great spot. So this front area is feeling nice. I feel like you can actually take your fills down by even more. You can probably like I'm looking at like the sky. The sky is pretty dark. You can take this down by maybe another stop and a half. This, and the reason why is like this is starting to feel great, but I would like to just, I think you can simplify this a little bit more and get our read here. This skull is looking really nice. I think you can push that like bounce exposure up, just like add a little bit more, make it a little bit more contrast and punchy, give it that evil feel to it. This like shaping you have on the back is looking great. Like this is reading a lot nicer in terms of that like really graphic read of this structure. Like what you have going on here is looking great. I think you can like shaping this pathway is really lovely. Yeah, but like my eye tends to go to the pathway more than the skull, and I think the skull is actually much more menacing and interesting. So you can pump up that a little bit more. Shaping you have is looking great. I think the fill, just to get our eye here more, you can just pull that fill down. You can pull it down, by a stop and a half. And yeah, that way, like this foreground area starts to pull away. If you look, the reason why I'm saying that is I'm looking at this top, like using the skulls as my reference, and the top of the skulls are actually brighter than the sky. So I think you can take that down. Shaping here is looking great. I love how this is separating. You can actually probably darken this just a little bit more so it separates a little bit more. Like this separates really nicely. Let me go here, this last couple frames. Yeah, and this is looking great. You may even be able to add in just a little bit more halation to this fire, maybe these two fires, just a little bit. But other than that, the read's feeling really nice. You have this really nice graphic structure, and a huge step from last time. But it's well on its way. Great job.